$1 million in generated revenue is the industry standard for you to make your transition into the online space as a high ticket closer. So most of you guys have been trained up, you've gone through a sales training program, right? After, investing, whether it's $97 all the way up to $10,000, right? You were brought into high ticket sales from the offline world through an ad, a webinar, something to that extent, made this investment where they simply explain to you, hey, all you have to do is learn this high income skill. And business owners would be lining up to hire you because of this high income skill of closing, right? But unfortunately, that's not the way it works, right? Because of this industry standard. I'm not going to call it a requirement because that's too strong. And I know people that have little to no sales experience, went through a sales training program, and have been able to land closing roles. Is that common? Absolutely not. I would say that would happen 5% of the time. Maybe between 5 to, let's just say, 20% of the time, but it's not very common. It's not frequent by any stretch. So as you guys go through your sales training program, as you complete it, and then you start doing your outreach to go out and find and land a quality sales role, you guys are joining the Facebook groups, you guys are commenting interested on sales opportunities, right? And the first question that most of you guys are going to be asked, whether it's by a sales recruiter or an online business owner, is, hey, have you generated $1 million in revenue? If you have not, typically moving forward, you're going to get ghosted. Or they might say, hey, fill out this application, submit your 90-second intro video, and we'll get back to you. And you never hear back from these people, right? And so that's super important for you guys to understand, because when you're pitched and sold something, which is, to me, it's your high ticket sales training program, if you haven't met that industry requirement of $1 million in generated revenue, you're going to struggle to land a job, especially if you're focusing on closing roles and closing opportunities. Because as time goes on, as 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes on, and you're starting to realize that, hey, no one wants to hire me because I don't have sales experience. When you continue to network with other people within the high ticket sales space, and you go back and seek guidance or mentorship from your sales training program, at that point in time, they might suggest to you, hey, why don't you start out as an appointment setter, right? As an SDR, or sales development representative. And so that's kind of the norm here. And that's kind of what really kind of infuriates me is, hey, you told me I could land a closing role, right? That's what you pitched and sold me on, is that, hey, I could learn this skill and get into a closing role. But now you guys are telling me that I need to start out as an appointment setter. Well, why don't you guys explain that to me in the beginning? And that's pretty common. And that's something that like really frustrates me. And that's why it is I do what I do, is because I know that there's a huge gap, there's a huge void in this industry. And there's a lot of sales gurus and all these high ticket sales trainers that are attaching a placement, a recruiting agency, a guaranteed job at the end of their sales training, to give you that safety and that feeling of safety and security that, hey, it's going to be easier, and it's going to be easy, and that you're going to be able to do this within no time. But in reality, it doesn't really work out that way. Because think about this rule, this industry standard of $1 million in generated revenue. Let's just say you come into this industry and you have like 0 sales experience. Think of everybody ahead of you that has generated 100K, 200K, 300K, 400K, all the way up to $1 million in generated revenue. All these people have more sales experience than you. Therefore, you are just getting pushed to the bottom as every day goes on, because there are more experienced people than you, right, that are getting started in this space, right? But even at that, an entry level sales experience is going to get you an entry level job. An entry level job in this space is an appointment setting position. So now, even when you take into consideration people that have generated more money, sales revenue than you have, those are the people that are going to be selected for an SDR role ahead of you. So everything that we've got to do moving forward is how do we leverage our own personal experience, our story? Hey, do we have preferred work experience that's going to help us make the transition into the high ticket sales space, but at the same time, help separate you from the crowd? Because that's going to be the most important thing here, because there's competition every step of the way. So $1 million in generated revenue is the standard for the high ticket sales space. If you have not generated that $1 million in revenue, I would strongly suggest stop focusing your time and your energy on landing a closing role. Bite the bullet, put your ego aside, and let's get started as an SDR, right? That way you can get your foot in the door and you can start making money like within the next 30 to 60 days. Because this is a long-term play, guys. This is not easy, but it's the path of least resistance. So find yourself a quality SDR role that has, a base pay plus commissions on the back end. That way you can get that experience. That way you can get that generated revenue. That way you can get up to that $1 million in generated revenue. And that way it's going to make your future job searches a lot easier. But at the same time, it helps you build your network. You're building out your own KPIs, generated rev, that, that's the experience that online business owners and sales recruiters are looking for. So I hope that makes sense.